Good morning, Hit Nation, folks, Fokettes, and everything in between and beyond. My name is Roy, the host of Mahappnies, and I am here to talk about Jimmy Butler because there is no post game to talk about. The game yesterday was fake. It just didn't happen. It happened. We lost. It seemed like we could have shown more grit, but we, whenever, and I said this about 10 times before, whenever we have a player like Jimmy Butler in the game, not getting the touches or getting the touches and not being as aggressive. For example, yesterday there was a time that he could have scored an easy basket and he handed off the ball to Weir for a turnover, a shot clock violation right before coming off the game. Body language, everything indicated exactly what we thought. I mean, okay, return to competition conditioning happens in one game, and then in the second game, you're doing the same thing. You're just standing in the corner, and when you're on the bench, you're sitting when everybody's standing. That should have been more than enough for people to think about it. So yeah, I myself missed it. I really thought it was going to stay, that it was going to play, but I misjudged his character a little bit. Um, Not a big deal. I'm not going to badmouth him at all. I appreciate Jimmy a lot, but we're going to talk a little bit about that. So there are four perspectives: the perspective from Jimmy Butler, the perspective from the Miami Heat, the perspective from the fans, and my perspective. And Five Reasons Sports had had a few videos talking about it and saying, from the Miami Heat's perspective, Jimmy Butler does not have to be moved by this season until the end of the season, and losing him for nothing is a fallacy, right? There is no such a thing as losing him for nothing. Releasing him, as what happened with Paul George, as I read a report right now, would free up cap space and would give us possibilities. In exchange for Butler getting, dead money in your accounts and not getting enough, it's just not something attractive. The Miami Heat does not have to settle for that just because of Jimmy and the way that he's playing. They can bench him, and they can just take this to the offseason. In my opinion, however, Pat Riley did make a huge mistake, a few huge mistakes. It's not just that the front office didn't get him help, then didn't get him the extension. But it's also the fact that when Pat Riley told him to shut up because he's not playing, that was Pat Riley's tough macho BS that I can't stand, and I never could, and I never will. Which is basically saying, if you're not playing, shut up. I agree with him. But where was Jimmy Butler at that time? Grieving 3 or 4 months after his father passed away. I knew that. Pat Riley knew that. Why? Why would you do that to Jimmy? Oh, the best of abilities, availability. Agree 100%. We don't want to be fleeced into getting something like that doesn't help us throughout the regular season, that makes us get into tough spots and then make us have to have way longer playoff runs like we did last one when we made the finals. And we had to go through two play-in games, not just one. And this time went to the playoffs going through the same situation. And Jimmy Butler got injured in the second game against Philly, and then he was a no-show in the playoffs. That's when he wrote a check that he couldn't possibly cash, which is, were I playing there, we would have won. He's not. He wasn't playing. We didn't win. But then again, Pat Riley forgot that the best thing that you can do is just stay quiet in face of situations like that. And he said what he said. But again, from the perspective of the Miami Heat organization, there is no need to move Butler now. They can just bench him. Is this something that is going to change because of what happened yesterday? I believe that there is at least something. Some things are going to change, right? I'm not certain that we're going to just sit idle. I'm pretty sure they're going to try to find something suitable for him as well, because at the end of the day, Jimmy Butler contributed a lot to our organization. From the perspective of the Jimmy Butler's camp, one thing that I said a couple of videos ago was that Five Reasons Sports was kind of sure that Jimmy Butler was okay with the team because he was playing dominoes with his agent. I failed to realize myself. I should have realized that, because that's where I'm actually good at, right? Realizing those little things. If he was playing with his dominoes with his agent, but not with other players, and no video came of him playing, joking around or having any kind of camaraderie with the other players, then I missed the cue that this is indeed a Butler way. Okay, it's with his agent in the facilities that he works. That doesn't say anything, and I failed to observe that. I also know that in Five Reasons Sports they were divided, right? Understanding that there were what Jimmy wants, what other teams want, and what Miami Heat wants, which is what's their motive. Mine is a little bit different here. They understood that other teams may not want him, but they also understood that like they also argued in terms of, okay, Ethan Skolnick thought that he was going to stay. That's why I thought the same thing, and Greg Sylvander said no, he's not going to stay. Like Amir said in Team to Beat, where there's smoke there's fire. I think Greg Sylvander was able to see it. Ethan Skolnick was kind of hopeful. I believe that was not the case, and unfortunately that was the case. And that's pretty much it. As it pertains to the Jimmy Butler camp, what is from Jimmy Butler's perspective itself, it's very difficult to understand what's going on. He said he's not worried about the money, but then the money is important. He says that he wants to play anywhere, but until very not long ago, getting a ring was the most important thing for him. So what do you mean? He wants to play in Brooklyn? Because we can get a couple of assets from Brooklyn. They have cap space. I don't know if they have picks, but whatever. Certainly there are things that could be done. If that's the case, you could put him in Brooklyn. Could put him in in other places that are not competing for a ring right now. And can he make a difference in the playoffs? He can. When has he done it? With Miami. Has he done it before in any other team? No. He had the opportunity to do it with a good Philly team, didn't do it. Had an opportunity to do it with a good Bulls team, didn't do it. He had the opportunity to do it with a good Minnesota team, he didn't do it. Where did he do it? With us. With us. Not once, twice. Not two ECFs, but three. And yet, he felt offended. He's not getting the money. So it's very difficult to know what's going on in his mind. What I can tell you is that I would think that he would benefit from a therapy. I don't know if he does it or not. He doesn't have to play if he's not happy, but at the same time, there's so many things happening that just he's behaving childishly, right? He didn't want, like in theory, he didn't want to be seen as the person that left Minnesota, troublemaker, and he's a troublemaker. What he's doing right now, in my opinion, hurts him too, because why would other teams want to risk having Jimmy Butler on the camp if Jimmy Butler is available whenever he wants to be available? And if he doesn't want to be available, then he just doesn't play. And then his regular season sees his games dwindling. We have this with other players like Embiid and, basically players that miss a lot of time, Harden, etc. But at the end of the day, Jimmy Butler missing time is yeah, Jimmy Butler is a guy that's going to really, really help you in the playoffs, but you have to get there first. So his behavior right now is very childish. I really don't think, that's basically what I believe. He's doing what he's doing because he doesn't want to be there anymore. But at the same time, if he's not feeling the joy of playing, he's a human being. It's going to be difficult. I don't feel the joy of working here at where I work. And it doesn't really mean that I'm going to stop working because I can't do that. But he can. And so I guess he does it. Is it disrespectful to the fans that have to go through so many obstacles that have been insulted by their bosses all the time, and they still want those flowers, they still want that basketball, so they can get out a little bit of the chaos that's happening in the world? I don't think it's fair with them, but I also don't think that he's thinking about it right now. So in my opinion, as it pertains to his camp and what he wants, it's pretty clear that he just doesn't want to be in Miami. But at the same time, there are things there that are wrong with him because he does seem like he grew. I feel like there are certain things that are wrong in terms of his mentality. So that's my perspective, right? For Jimmy's Butler camp, my perspective is what he's doing is childish. What he's doing makes us lose respect for him, which is completely unnecessary. This is a guy that we can certainly say carried the team on his back on certain playoff occasions. Not always, but on certain playoff occasions. And as was told before, him being a playoff Jimmy that he is in the first and second rounds is great. But then he's exhausted in the third round already. And then in the finals, he doesn't have the same energy in the tank. And nobody else is stepping up to the plate. As much as I think that the bubble final was the one that we could have gotten where we all healthy, We could also see, those who remember watching those games could see the superiority of the Lakers in comparison to us. And there is nothing to add in terms of the superiority of the Nuggets once we made the finals in comparison to us. So obviously, he couldn't do it all by himself. And that is really frustrating for a player like him. And it's frustrating for us to see, look, what he needs is just one successful complementation. And that never came through. And so, from my perspective, I see that Jimmy Butler is wrong on the way that he's acting. It just doesn't look good. He could do the same thing, but actually play. There is no reason it cannot. If it's going toward him just being released at the end of the season, right? Regardless of whether he opts in or opts out, then he could be giving his. There is no standing to the logic that Pat Riley would want to keep him if he plays well. He's just not playing well because, oh, I don't feel like it. Because people with his wealth status don't have to feel like working. They don't need to work. They work because they want to. Most of them. I know a lot of people blow their monies out after a couple of months being outside of the team or outside of the career. I understand that 100%. That's not Jimmy Butler. So as far as my understanding, not only he's childish, but also the organization mishandled the situation pretty badly. I'll say this. I don't trust in Pat Riley. Like, what has Pat Riley done, really, before Jimmy Butler and after the big three? That's one thing. Now, still, from and again, and from the perspective of the fans are not voting for All-Star this year because they're disillusioned. So even Jordan Poole has more votes than Hero. Bam is toward the end of the voting as well, but he doesn't deserve an All-Star this season. Hero does. And Butler is still there for some reason. Attendance is going down, is going to go more down after this incident yesterday. But you cannot ask fans, unless they're breaking stuff and it happens in soccer in Brazil. They're breaking the stadium, they're breaking the arena, they're breaking the players' cars. You can't blame fans for not wanting to watch a product that they know from the get-go is not going to be sufficient for them to get to the finals. And that's something that is very heartbreaking because I'm used to rooting for big teams. In Brazil, Corinthians is one of the biggest teams. But still, the seasons that Corinthians doesn't do anything, they're very painful. And a lot of fans stop watching because of that. I'm not going to blame those fans or call them unreal fans again. So I'm going to go back to that point because there's people fan in different ways. People root for things in different ways. But at the same time, you can't expect the fans to want to be in the arena understanding that this is a losing season. And if this is a losing season, it's not boding well for Butler to be traded this season, right? Is it going to happen? Now I think that there is a stronger chance that it will. But I really hope that we don't put ourselves in a big hole because of him, right? Me, and as I think most fans should be, we are very grateful for Jimmy Butler's tenure with us. But we think Jimmy Butler should also be grateful for his tenure with us. And we think that because of that, it takes him away from the status of one of the best to the status of one of the best players we had that wet the bed, in a different way. And that's the opposite of what I wanted Jimmy Butler's tenure to be. Now, during the seasons of 17 and 18, so it's basically 2 seasons, right? 17, 18, 18 to 19, I didn't watch the Miami Heat. I was completely out of it. I had some issues to deal with. I was just not into sports at all. There were a lot of things happening in my life. When I came back to watch them, I didn't even know that Jimmy Butler. I didn't think Jimmy Butler was a great player when I watched him. When I started watching him first, because I went back to watching the regular season games in 2019 in November when we played against a very depleted Warriors at the time. My wife still pregnant. We went to the game together. My son just kicking wildly in her belly, and so that was a sign for me to say, okay, I have to keep watching this team. And I never missed a single game from that moment on. I may miss minutes here and there, but I never miss a game. I never missed a game since that point. So once I started to realize the importance of Jimmy Butler, and once I saw playoff Jimmy, of course, one of the players that I most admired for a very long time. But what he's doing right now is so people grow, people adapt, but people don't change. This is the same Jimmy Butler that left Minnesota the way he did. Same Jimmy Butler that left Philly the way he did. Same Jimmy Butler that left Bulls the way he did, but more so than any other team in Minnesota. However, I am still rooting for him. I wish him all the best. He deserves a ring. I just hope that he doesn't get a ring on top of us. We are not competing for a ring this season, so if he goes to a contending team, I'll be happy for him if he wins a ring. But basically what it did is this. That's my perspective, okay? Jimmy Butler goes and says, I'm unhappy because I got scolded by my boss, and therefore I'm not gonna work anymore. I'm not gonna put in not gonna put in my part for this organization that has for the first time put me in the ECF, that has for the first time given me a chance at 2 finals. And I know, maybe you, Jose, can't really quit your job because your boss scolds you or because of anything like that. But I can. I'm a millionaire, and come drink my coffee here at Big Face. Jimmy, love you again. Love you, man. Ready. Ready. But the people that we love the most when it comes to being a fan are the people that break our hearts the most. And you really, really broke our hearts. That's all. That's all I can say. I mean, for the rest of I don't want Jimmy Butler to play again with the Miami Heat. I understand the fans. I understand the Miami Heat's tendency of not wanting to trade him now because we don't want to handicap us. And I understand Butler. You don't have to play in a team that you're not happy. Great. At the same time, all those antics. And it took me a while to get to a certain level of maturity, and I never had the fame and the money that he has, so it's impossible for me to judge him. But what a baby! What a baby! It shouldn't be called big face. It should be called baby faced coffee, because that's a baby. He behaved like a baby. I'm not particularly happy necessarily going to work every day. I still have to go to work every day. Jimmy Butler doesn't. That's just the fact of the situation, and that's what breaks our hearts the most. Anyway, more recording maybe tomorrow. Stay safe, stay dry, stay as happy as possible. It's a complicated world of ours. Bye, Jimmy. Let's go Heat.